Ramily Radio. We're at training camp 2024.
Hello, Ramily, me Ramilia. It's finally game week. This is your host, Jonathan, at king_john22 on Instagram. And welcome back to Ramily Radio. We're getting ready for week one in Detroit for the Rams to pick up right where they left off last year. And the team sounds excited to get some much needed redemption on the Lions, honestly. I'm going to be talking about changes from last year's teams, some concerns for week one, and current injuries, my predictions for the game, and betting lines. Make sure you please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm doing a giveaway for a Rams jersey once the channel hits 1,000 subscribers. Let me know in the comments if you agree or share your thoughts down there, okay? Last year's changes, total yards allowed on defense for both teams were almost exactly the same, both giving up just under 340 yards a game. Detroit's passing defense was just a little bit worse. They gave up 16 more yards per game, but they did give up 4 more passing touchdowns than the Rams did. Which means that the Rams' run defense was a little bit worse last season. The Rams were actually one of the best run defenses last year, at second in the league with only 88 rushing yards a game. And the Rams were 12th, giving up 107 rushing yards a game. However, the Lions did give up 1 more rushing touchdown last year than the Rams did. From what I found in my research so far is Detroit, they made significant changes on their defense, just like the Rams did, adding to the secondary and the defensive line. The most telling news that I could find when I was doing some research is the Lions defense at the end of the training camp period was actually beating the Lions offense on full go scrimmages. The offense had really good things to say about their defense, just kind of improving year over year. But this tells me that the Lions really don't have that much trust in their secondary right now. They use their top 2 picks for the defensive back positions. And we know that the Rams are ready to air it out against anybody, honestly. And if the Lions think that, some newcomers or some rookies are going to be giving Matthew Stafford any issues, then they really must have forgotten how bad a man Matthew Stafford is. Other things, Josh Reynolds is not on Detroit anymore. That's a big win. He was really torching the Rams during that playoff revenge game. I just got to rewatch it, and in the first half, he was lighting it up, honestly. He was a really big reason why the Lions' first 3 visits to the red zone all led to touchdowns. The Rams' offense does look stronger this season than it does last season. We returned all of the key parts of the offense. Puka and Kupp got a whole offseason to spend together. From what I heard, Puka was right on Kupp's hip the whole time. So I'm excited to see how much more improved that duo can be. And the Rams also found some gems to add to the wide receiver and running back core with Corum and Jay Witt. So excited to see how much Jay Witt gets to play. We definitely know Corum's going to be playing a role because Kyren is, his responsibilities have expanded with the punt returning and things like that. So that just tells me that Corum has gained trust already to give that kind of spell to Kyren. On defense, we're finally going to see the rookies play. We heard about them all offseason. I'm trying to get a V8, Jared Verse, to see him out there, see what he can do. And also Braden Fisk, the kingpin. It sounds like he's going to really light up the league too. So obviously losing Jones hurts, but at this point of the year, we're getting ready for week one, and it's time for the Rams and all the Rams fans to focus on the players that are on the team. I'm definitely an emotional Rams fan. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I wasn't happy about the move, but like I just said, we got to focus on the guys that are going to be wearing Rams uniforms. I see the path for the Super Bowl this year being much more similar to the first time the Rams went to the Super Bowl with Sean McVay, and that's just by dominating the NFL on offense, and not really relying on what the defense does or relying on the defense to make a stop or get a turnover. The Rams are going to have to be putting up 28 to 35 points a game to really get to that 12 wins that I see them peaking at this year. So I want to talk about offensive line. Main concern for week one is definitely the offensive line. That's really the only thing that I have major concerns of. and that's because the guys that are on the team that we were expecting to be playing are injured or suspended or something along those lines. You know, it's not like we're just missing players like Aaron Donald on defensive line or Ernest Jones on a completely different team. We're not going to get those guys back. We weren't kind of expecting Jones to play for most of the period, but the last 2 weeks he was gone already. So we weren't expecting that, him to be a factor in week one, the last few weeks. So to me, the big concern is definitely the offensive line. It's in shambles. Last year's game against the Lions had their defensive line getting constant pressure on Matthew, and it ruined literally multiple red zone visits. There was 3 red zone visits, and the Rams only got 9 points out of it, so they didn't get a single touchdown during that playoff game, and they only lost by 1 point. So it's definitely a game that could have been won if the red zone, play was better, honestly. The offensive line has already been shuffled from what we were expecting it to be in week one. Avila reportedly isn't even playing center anymore, which is a big change from the whole offseason talk of he could be a Pro Bowl first-year center to now he's not even in that position right now with the injuries and things that are going on. Both tackles are hurting and out. Well, actually, I don't think Lyric is hurting, but he's suspended. So we're missing him for 2 weeks no matter what. Rob has been trying his best to get back in for week one, but it's going to be obvious that even if he does play week one, he's not going to be at 100%. Aiden Hutchinson is going to be rushing his behind off to get to Matthew Stafford, honestly. And it's one of those dream scenarios for a pass rusher. You come off an entire offseason, you spend your whole offseason getting better at things that you want to get better at, and then you get to come in week one and go up against a backup tackle. It's not ideal for the Rams, and it's even more ideal for Aiden. So that's something that I think McVay is going to have to think long and hard about. He's going to have to come in ready with screens, draws, and like even trap run plays to try and take the air out of him. We definitely saw last year the screen plays were some of the more successful plays that started at or behind the line of scrimmage. But running the ball really wasn't that successful last year against those guys, and they're going to have to get creative again if the offensive line can't step up on Sunday. Just to give some O-line changes to make it obvious, during the playoff game last year, the starting Rams offensive line was Lyric Jackson, Avila, Shelton, Dotson, and Rob. The starting offensive line that we were expecting with all the changes and for it to be fully healthy was going to be Lyric and Jonah Jackson, then Avila at center, then Dotson and Rob. Now the projected line that's going to be starting on week one, we're going to get a better update later in the week, but right now it's looking like either Noteboom, Avila, Jonah Jackson, Dotson, and then McClendon. And if Jonah is not healthy enough to play, then it's looking like Zach Thomas is going to be put in at guard, and they'll just put Avila back at center. So luckily, Avila's a dog. Avila's, really solidified himself as a really good guard and has a skill to also play center. He's had the whole offseason to kind of get prepared for center. So you have good versatility with Avila right there. But it's a backup offensive line. Noteboom, Thomas, McClendon, they all played heavily during the preseason, and that's not good. If you watch the Rams, you know that the starters, they don't even suit up during the preseason. So that just makes it clear to me that the Rams are playing with the backup offensive line on Sunday. The bright spot for offensive line, though, is that during the whole preseason, they played really well. So hopefully on week one, it doesn't look like a backup offensive line. And it's just guys that are ready to step up and become starters. And then McVay hopefully has a bigger issue on deciding who's going to be starting when the starters get healthy. As far as injuries go, Rams are hurting at offensive line. We just talked about that. They also have suspensions to worry about. Alaric Jackson, Jimmy G, both of them out for 2 games. And that's potentially putting the Rams down 3 starters on the offensive line, and a nightmare situation if Stafford goes down. And those go hand in hand. If you have a bad offensive line and Stafford is getting hit, it's 100 times more likely that he's going to get hurt than if you had a great offensive line and he was clean the whole game. So it's something to look out for. But with that being said, don't think that the injuries are just one-sided. The Lions are definitely hurting too. They're hurting at wide receiver. They only have 4 wide receivers on the 53-man roster right now. I don't know if they're going to come into Sunday with just 4 wide receivers, but with how high a scoring a game I think it's going to be, that could put them in a tighter situation. They're also missing their veteran kicker that played for them during the playoff game last year, hit a long field goal to extend their lead, to score their only 3 points of the second half, and that was all the points that they needed. He's not going to be playing, and he's on IR, I believe. So if the defense can hold up, on their side of the field, make it a longer field goal, the Lions are going to be making some tough decisions on 4th down. They did go for it the most on 4th down last year, so that's just going to be a chance to get some additional turnovers from the defense, because a turnover on downs, still a turnover from the way I see it. As far as predictions, my prediction for the game, I'm expecting a high-scoring game for sure. I'm thinking it's going to be 30-35 Rams. Stafford wins it, goes on his final drive there at Stafford Field, does the things that only Matthew Stafford can do in the 4th quarter on a final drive. Corum, I think that he's going to get his first touchdown of the year, but I think that Cooper Kupp has the first Rams touchdown of the season. And then Puka going for 120 plus is what I'm seeing. Are predicting for the game. On the defensive side, I'm predicting that Q is going to step up in his star position. He's going to have a key pass breakup on his boy Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's something that really bugged him, and you could tell it bugged him during some of his interviews during the training camp and off season, is that he thought long and hard about how Amon-Ra made that final first down on him on 2nd and 9 in the 4th quarter. After that first down, the Lions just had to knee it out, and they won the game at that point. Three or four victory formations in a row, and that was a wrap. And you can tell that he's been thinking about it a lot, and he worked with Amon-Ra during the whole offseason. So it's time for all that repetition, all that practice to really come into fruition, and him to realize that on the field and go make something happen. On top of that, I see the defense with 5 or more tackle for loss and sacks combined. So we're really hoping to see that defensive line that was being all hyped up over the offseason to make a difference, to have their ears pinned back and really try and get after the quarterback, really try and get after these running backs that Detroit's going to be running. As far as bets for the game, right now the line is sitting at the Rams being the underdogs. They're at plus 3.5. The over seems to be set anywhere from 50.5 to 51.5, depending where you're betting. But I think that the over is going to be the safer bet between those two right now. And then the surest prop bet that I could think of is Aiden Hutchinson getting at least 1 sack. If you see it at 1.5, man, I might even take the over. He had 2 sacks during the playoffs last year, and now he's going up against a worse offensive line during that playoff game. So that's what I got. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week and throughout the whole season. Definitely want to get one of these episodes every Tuesday or Wednesday during the season. So make sure you like and subscribe and follow me on TikTok so that you can continue getting Ramily Radio content. Whose house? Ram's house.